The World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this year was all about a couple of key points. Firstly, there was the entire discussion on green energy, on clean energy, sustainable growth for various companies around the world. This assumes extraordinary importance given that the world is struggling to meet its emission goals in the foreseeable future. A rise in global temperatures would be catastrophic for billions around the world. So therefore, sustainable growth, a theme which would have perhaps been mostly unheard of about 15 years back, was center stage this year at the World Economic Forum. Indian companies also have a significant stay as far as green power, green energy, renewable energy is concerned. Renew Power, one of the largest Indian companies looking at green energy, has had a sizable presence over here. They are the first Indian company in the green energy space to be listed in the Nasdaq in the United States. Their vision and whether it would ultimately be implemented across Indian industry is something that we'll need to wait and look out for. The second theme, which was very important at the World Economic Forum, was the entire issue of Ukraine and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The loss of so many lives, thousands of lives, Russian lives and Ukrainian lives. The impact of international sanctions on Russia, which was notoriously absent, perhaps predictably so, from the World Economic Forum this year. Interestingly, the major India lounge at the India Pavilion at the World Economic Forum was located right next to, in fact, attached to a pavilion which looked at the horrors of war perpetrated by Russia in the Ukraine. It is interesting because India in international fora has chosen not to vote against Russia. It has instead accepted a middle ground, a middle path, balancing our national interests with our concern over war crimes which may have been perpetrated in the Ukraine, for which India has called for an international look at whether these allegations are true or not. But the Ukraine pavilion, and this is a strange irony, which was separate from what I just described, was in fact completed by an Indian national who works here in Switzerland. And that's interesting because the Ukrainian government, as we understand, didn't have all of the funds that they required to complete the pavilion. So it was an Indian entrepreneur who actually chose to finish it. The third key point over here at the World Economic Forum was Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, Web 3.0. What is the future? Remember, there have been concerns over here in India certainly, about the future of cryptocurrency, whether we could call it a digital currency, whether that would be acceptable, or is it just a digital asset that needs to be looked at? That was another key point looked at very closely, with many suggesting that Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, Web 3.0, and the future of this technology and what it means for financial inclusion is something that needs to be addressed very, very closely indeed. I think for me, the fourth key point was the large India presence at Davos this year. There have been several chief ministers who've come over here, several pavilions from states, whether it was Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, other states as well over here. All of these states actually chose to push forward their vision of their states, bring in international investors, and say that while they were here in a sense to project India, it was attracting international attention to their states, possible investments in their states, which was a huge priority for them as well. So these were a couple of important points, but I should hasten to mention that the role of India internationally and in our foreign policy was looked at very, very closely as well. The MD of the International Monetary, the IMF, in fact, told us that she begs India, the International Monetary Fund tells us that she begs India to end the ban on the export of wheat. India, remember, initially said that given the food crisis which has taken place as a result of no exports from Ukraine, which is very much a granary of the world, India would actually fill in the gap and would export wheat, not something that we've exported in very large quantities in the past. But then, given climatic changes in India, the intense heat wave across large parts of India, that decision was overturned and the ban took place. But the IMF chief telling us, NDTV, that she begs India to please end that ban on the export of wheat because it sets a bad precedent and India has a greater role to play. And finally, remember, this World Economic Forum meet is taking place in the context of the world slowly coming out of COVID. And therefore, will there be a genuine resurgence of the global economy? Because the COVID pandemic, remember, may be coming down somewhat, but it's not over. Global growth forecasts projected by the IMF at about 3.6% are lower than what many would have expected. But the India story here remains positive, with India being perhaps the highest growth rate country coming out of COVID. That's something which has been asserted. Will India's economy continue to come out of COVID faster than perhaps any other leading economy in the world? In Davos, Vishnu for NDTV.